Hey guys, a quick note before the video starts. If you're interested in purchasing or learning more about my controller, please check out the description. I will be updating it as the situation changes, but for now, I want to do some more redesign before officially selling this. Namely, I want to do some changes to the PCB and the sleepy eye controls. What's up guys, and welcome to the installation video for my pop-up controller. Let's start with the tools I'll be using today. A flathead screwdriver, Phillips screwdriver, 10mm socket or a wrench, and some wire cutters with zip ties. Then of course the parts from my set. The controller itself, the wing buttons, the sleepy eye controls, and the cables for the wing buttons. Alright, let's start with the removal of the first trim piece. You want to grab it with your hands here and pull up, and gradually work your way forward all the way to the front. If it feels loose but you still can't pull it out, try pulling this part towards yourself and to the right. Now it should be possible to remove the trim. Set it aside. Okay, for the next part we'll need a Phillips head screwdriver. Now let's get to it. First, start by removing the two screws holding the hood opening mechanism to the trim piece. Leave it dangling where it is for now. Now we need to remove 6 more screws that hold this trim piece in place. These next two screws I'm about to remove below the ignition switch should be hidden by a small plastic clip piece. I have lost it somewhere at some point, but it should be possible to remove it by hand or with, for example, a flathead screwdriver. With all 6 screws removed, we can now pull out the trim piece. The right side should pop out rather easily, but the left side above a speaker might require some more force. Now we can remove the hood opener. And after disconnecting the speakers, there should be nothing more holding the trim in here. So let's get it out. This plastic duct is the last thing holding us back from getting to the light retractor relay, and it's held on by one plastic clip up here. We will need a flathead screwdriver or some other applicable tool to pry the plastic clip out. Here I pried it from various angles until it's pushed out enough for me to get a good grip with my fingers. And just like that, the pin is pulled out. Now we need to wiggle the duct around while pulling it down until it pops out. Once it's out, get it out of here. The light retractor relay is held on by one screw here. We will use a 10mm socket with a ratchet to remove it. Now I am going to pull out the connector. There is a lever here you have to push in, and then it's just about your strength. This might take a lot of force to pull out, be aware. Now put your light switch into the hold position, otherwise the pop-ups could start moving when you connect the controller later. Now let's temporarily connect all the parts and verify everything works well before we get to the wiring. So we will need a pop-up controller, the wing buttons, the sleepy eye controls, and last but not least, the wing button cables. Let's start by connecting the pop-up controller. The pop-ups should not move at all if the light switch is in the hold position. If they are moving, then disconnect the controller and abort the installation, although this should not happen. Next, connect the sleepy eye controls. The pop-ups still shouldn't move. Connect all the wing button cables to the controller according to the labels. The pop-ups still should not move. The wing button icons are as such: LH, RH, and both. Connect the other end of the wing button cables to the wing buttons as labeled. Now to finally test the functionality. Let's start with the light switch controls. Essentially, they should function the same way as factory, with the exception that the headlights go down immediately when the switch is put into the off position. Now the wing buttons. This should be pretty self-explanatory. Clicking a wing button should make the affected pop-up or pop-up swing. And this should work correctly for the up and down position of the pop-ups, and even with the sleepy eyes, which we will test in a minute. And lastly, the sleepy eye controls. They have a button and a knob. The button toggles between the sleepy eye mode, and the knob adjusts the sleepy eye position. Light switch controls should not affect the pop-up position while the sleepy eye mode is active. If everything works as intended, it is time to secure it properly. Start by disconnecting everything from the controller except for the main connector. Secure the controller in the same spot and using the same screw as the factory light retractor relay. Be sure to only hand tighten the screw, as the mounting bracket is made out of plastic and could crack. We will now route the wires for the wing buttons. Start by pulling up the parking lever, and then reach in with your hand and pop out the large slot cover from below. Next, we will carefully pop out the trim piece below the shift knob. This is done by grabbing onto the trim piece at its corners and pulling upwards. Position the shift knob and its trim piece so it's not in your way, and then reach in with your hand and pop out the coin slot cover. Bend your cables if needed to make the routing easier. Use the large slot opening to push in the cables one by one, with the 4-pin microfit connector leading the way. This part is a bit tricky, that is why we popped out the small coin slot cover. Try to first push the cable towards the opening, and then use your other hand to help guide it through all the way to the shift knob area. Nice. Make sure you leave enough cable hanging out so it doesn't fall all the way into the hole. Now repeat all of this for the 2 more cables. Connect the connectors to the wing buttons as labeled. Feed in the cables in a little bit more, but make sure to leave a small part hanging out like so, in case there's any need to do maintenance in the future. Reorient the shift knob and its trim to get more access to the front part. We will now route the wires through the central console. They will enter through here, and they will leave out through here next to the pedals, and from there they will go directly to the pop-up controller. The cables shall be routed one by one. Start by grabbing the microfit connector end with your right hand and push it into the opening. At the same time, get your left hand into the area next to the gas pedal and fish for the connector. You should be able to almost touch with both of your hands. Once you get the first cable through, do the same for the rest. Pop out the small slot cover from the shift knob trim and feed through the cable from the sleepy eye controls. Click the sleepy eye controls into the slot. And route the cable through the same route as the wing button cables. It's time to connect back everything together. Follow the labels on the cables and connect all 3 wing buttons and the sleepy eye controls. Obviously, all this loose wiring is a mess and would get in the way, so we will grab some zip ties and secure it in place. You can choose whatever mounting point seems the best to you. It will likely differ based on your trim, but in general I suggest to find somewhere under the steering column. It can even be another cable if it's secured well. I will use one more zip tie to secure the excess. You also want to secure the cables in the shift knob area to prevent them from rubbing against the shifting mechanism. There is a convenient mounting hole that I'm about to use here. And here it is with the zip tie attached. Now we can finally return the shift knob trim to its rightful place, and we will do the same for the wing button slot. And now we are finally done. You can return the other trim pieces in the reverse order. Check the user guide for more information about the controller and feel free to leave any questions or such in the comments down below. Thanks for watching!